right, Rob, he just mentioned Epstein and Silver a little. As the ex-Air Force pilot you are, can you just take it for a little test run, not a complete flight, but explain to him what we've kind of uncovered with ETHgate and JP Morgan and Epstein ties. And I'd just like to know if any dots connect in David's head. And David, if you don't have any comments, that's fine too.
Okay.
Well, Mr. I'll give it a shot. I'm going to take David's approach here. I mean, if talking on this topic, I'm a D2 athlete at best. Okay, I'm not completely versed.
I've seen your tweets, Rob. So do your best.
Well, all I can tell is that we know for a fact you've got blowhards like Joseph Lubin bragging about JP Morgan being with him before the main net of Ethereum was ever launched. Okay, we know that he's got a special piece of paper in his pocket that gave him a waiver when they were doing the ETHgate whale sales, which we still to this day have no idea who purchased all of those basically ICOs, illegal ICOs that Bill Hinman acknowledged was an illegal ICO. We've got CCP involvement all over the place. God only knows how much involvement and ownership CCP has in JP Morgan and that type of dealing. But we've got a Vitalik Buterin, who's the chief scientist of the biggest blockchain company in the world, apparently, a Chinese-owned CCP-related blockchain company. So when you start to put all the pieces and the players and the secrecy together, it's literally impossible to unwind that Gordian knot of the CCP, Joseph Lubin, Vitalik Buterin, CCP blockchain companies, JP Morgan Chase, and Mr. Epstein is right there in the middle of all of it. So the fact that there's such an unbelievable amount of willful blindness and absolute feather bedding in the SEC and the CFTC and even the Federal Reserve, for God's sakes, I mean, in a nanosecond, JP Morgan is willing to pay or settle $290 million allegation on some kind of malfeasance with Epstein. It blows my mind that here we have a media that is grossly incurious. No one will talk about it. No one will address it. There's corruption to high heavens, and the Boy Scouts over at Ripple and XRP, who are completely clean and completely transparent and open books, are being ravaged because they represent such a disruptive technology and a brand new approach to the hidden, Western fractional reserve lending, fiat, make up the rules as you go type of society. So I don't know if I'm asking the question correctly or getting to an actual question. I'm just kind of ranting here a little bit, Mr. I. But the fact that what I just find unbelievable is that you're having anywhere from 60, 70, 80% of human population and 50, 60, 70% of GDP the world over that does all the production, that has the resources, that has the labor, that has the ability to do the work, and that have been screwed over by infinite money printing and exported inflation for 40 years, now have a chance to right the ship and say, we're not taking your American dollar anymore. We're not taking your worthless paper anymore. These are the only forms of payment that we will accept for all the production we're going to be doing for the next 30 years. Take it or leave it. I mean, you've got two hollowed out centers. You got the United States of America, as Ross Perot said, you hear a giant sucking sound. We've heard it with NAFTA. We've exported our manufacturing base. And the Davos, UK world's not any better. So here we are, the two big money printing centers are on their knees at the mercy of the production part of the world. We don't get to dictate terms of payment anymore. It's the producing nations that get to dictate how they're going to sell their goods and services and to whom. It would seem to me, David, that the drunk frat boys that have been operating the keg, for 60 or 70 or 110 years since 1913, have lost their right to tell anybody or tell the rest of the world what the hell they're going to do anymore. What am I missing?
No, I think you're
No, Rob,
missing.
you covered it great.
Yeah, yeah, and Mr. Connect me with Rob offline with an email, so I might put him on the crypto conspiracy because I think even though
He's the
it's never
greatest, David.
completed, but it might be a good summary of all this stuff. So if we look at the basics and we go back to the year 2000, I wrote one of my first documents for the public domain called Engineering the Price of Gold. Now, I look at gold as a hard currency and currency only, meaning it's equivalent to the amount of printed pieces of paper we have, or M0, true money supply, you call it in the Austrian school. And if you take that math back in 2000, I know we're in 2023, this is 23 years later, the cash equivalent, it's a very simple arithmetic problem you could learn in second grade. You take the amount of gold divided by the amount of dollars, and you got the dollar price of gold. The result of that division problem was $2,500 the ounce. And that one was basically at 252 or 1/10 that price. Today, if you do that same arithmetic, you're over $25,000 an ounce. So there's really enough gold in the world to do any commerce. It's just it has to be valued correctly. And I'll use the word priced, but price is a nebulous term in a way because it keeps changing. That's why you can't set a minimum wage and have it work. I mean, I got out of school as a degreed engineer and worked in the aircraft industry at the beginning. I was $6 an hour. And, I'm an old man now, but that gives you an idea of how inflation is so insidious and works through the economy. But most people don't understand economics. One further comment, and this was really more on point with what Rob outlined so well. Anytime you look at the macro picture, you'll find the Austrian school is generally correct, which means Austrians look at wealth as the means of production. In other words, whoever produces the most food, knickknacks, electronics, farm equipment, machinery, die-cast tooling, you name it, that is the country or area that has the most wealth. They're producing wealth, real things, labor producing wealth. And that is what happens as we look at the big picture. So if you go back prior to World War II, the empire, the UK, United Kingdoms, was the big fish. They had most of the gold, and they, through their colonies, produced most of the real wealth. Well, that shifted, and America became the number one producer of real wealth. And what happened? The gold shifted to America. Now we see China producing most of the real wealth. And where's the gold going? Largely to China. So you can see gold or follow the money, which is one of the best ways as a investigator, researcher. If you really want to get away from all of the rhetoric and the propaganda and the misinformation, disinformation, what you do is you follow the money. So if we follow the gold story, it goes from the UK to the United States to China. And if we follow the productive capacity or the Austrian way of looking at wealth, it goes from the UK to the US to China. Now, just an aside, as Rob was talking, it brought to mind when I was in Beijing. I've only been in Beijing once. I was there about 10 days. I met with the mining bureau, toured a lot of different mines in China, had a nice chit chat with them. And this was probably about 2005 or six. Purportedly, when I was at their major money center bank up on not the top level, but pretty high up, meeting with some of the authority types in the Chinese hierarchy, it was rumored that one of the major banks, and it's been mentioned by Rob, it's got a JP in the front of it, was there. And I thought, and I'd already come to this conclusion, but maybe not as well as I can in hindsight. And I realized that the gold story was going to be paused for a while because the way to keep a Ponzi scheme going is you need more pawns. And if you bring 1.4 billion new players into the game, of a fiat Keynesian corrupt law based on a lie Ponzi scheme, you got a lot more Ponzi's to go. And where I was in error is how long it would go, which it's been at least a decade. And with this big boom in China, and they have created a lot of wealth, some of it ghost cities and others, I don't want to digress too far, but all of that was an anti-gold situation because the Keynesians were winning. See, we can print wealth. And for some time, you can print wealth. If as long as people accept the phony baloney USD as value, then you can make cement plants. You can, make these huge cities, and all this has gone on in China. So I miscalculated somewhat how long it would go on. But now we're at the end of the game. And the end game is they can't do it anymore. People are not accepting the USD. They're looking for alternatives. You got the whole crypto world. You got precious metals. You've got the BRICS proposal. And there are others. I mean, there's barter clubs. There's peer-to-peer. I mean, there's a lot going on. And this is what happens at the end of all great inflations, is that people or the market looks for an alternative, and they come up with them. And that's the free market at work. No matter how hard the authorities try, you can never get rid of free market thinking. Now, those of us that are bent that way, and certainly I am, may be ridiculed, maybe ostracized, maybe blocked. I've been shadow banned for so long, it's not even funny. But yet, the word of truth is very, very powerful. So I'll stop there.
That's all right, David.
Insights, Rob.
I'm ready to see you swimming out without their trunks, and I'm going to connect you with Rob offline. We got about 8 minutes left with you. Obviously we can all talk to you forever. I want